Hey everybody, it's Sean Bewley the Kid. Have you ever wondered if those dress uniform swords that the United States Marines wear and some naval officers wear, have you ever wondered if they're real or sharp? Well, as a little kid, I always thought they're real because I figured if they run out of bullets, they can just get their sword out and start slashing. But it wasn't until today that I actually tested one. So I got out my United States Naval Officer sword from the 1950s. This thing saw service on a few warships. It's very, very fancy, and it's etched with a lot of designs. But I'd have to say overall, this is the sharp end of the blade, and I can just run my hand back and forth on it, and it does not cut. However, I wasn't satisfied with that. I had to test it on a watermelon. So the results on a watermelon is, yes, it will cut a watermelon and it will stab a watermelon. So if the United States Marines run out of bullets, they can run around with their sword and stab watermelon. Now that's not why I'm doing this video. Now generally, I do not do videos on nautical things, ocean things, but this is the exception because I have something very special to show you. I've had a piece of history for many, many years, and I figured I better get this out and show you guys. And there's another reason I have to show you, because several years ago, my sister-in-law was here, and she's into nautical stuff, and I gave her this. I just haven't shipped it to her yet. So I'm going to show you guys, tell you a little bit about the history of it. So this here is a historic bell. This thing is off of a ship called the USS Jeannette Skinner, and it served in World War I. And in a few minutes from right now, you just stay with me on this. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history. I'm going to ring this bell, and you're going to actually hear the sounds of history through this video. So stick with me on it. This bell once rang over the Atlantic. It rang through fog and during long watches under dark skies and even during war. It's from a ship called the Jeannette Skinner. It was built in 1917 in Seattle, Washington for a Norwegian shipping company based out of Haugesund. Now, before it could haul freight in peace, it was pulled into the chaos of World War I. The United States seized her before she could even sail under Norway's flag, converting her into a military cargo ship, part of the massive quiet fleet that kept the war effort alive. These ships didn't fire broadsides or chase enemy cruisers, but they were just as vital. They carried the lifeblood of the war: ammunition, supplies, food, fuel, across an ocean full of submarines. The Jeannette Skinner sailed from New York and Baltimore, loaded to the rails with cargo for the United States Army in France. She crossed the treacherous waters to ports like Brest and Bordeaux, slipping through the gray, U-boat patrolled Atlantic. On her deck, a single naval gun stood watch. That gun and the sailors behind it were all that stood between that ship and a torpedo. And above it all hung this bell. Ships' bells were sacred objects, not just for keeping time, though they did that, striking every half hour during each 4-hour watch, but also for warning. In fog, this bell would be rung at regular intervals, its voice cutting through the mist to alert nearby vessels. It likely hung near the bridge or the forecastle, somewhere high enough for its sound to travel across the water and weather alike. Every sailor aboard would know its tone. Most cargo ships like the Jeannette Skinner only had one bell, this one. It rang when the captain gave orders, when danger approached, and when peace finally returned. After the war, she went back to commercial life, hauling goods across the oceans until she was finally scrapped in 1945. But this bell somehow survived. Now some say the ship's bell carries the soul of the ship. and it makes a sound that was a voice when the world was at war, and a humble cargo ship answered the call. All right, guys, so I'm going to ring the bell just like I promised. This is the sound that the crew would have heard. And this bell is 108 years old, so it has not rung very often since then. So here goes. I think the cat just went out of the house really fast, and I don't think his legs were even on the ground. I think he flew. So anyway, it's pretty loud. But there you are, guys. That's what the exact sound they heard 108 years ago during World War I. Now, I got to be honest with you guys. Before I even got that bell, I didn't even know these ships really existed. I just made assumptions about how the troops got their supplies. But can you imagine if these types of ships, these cargo ships, weren't allowed to sail during war? The troops wouldn't even have food. They wouldn't have ammunition. They would be defeated. So in a way, these cargo ships, they're a major part of winning a war. So that's the end of the history portion of this video. Now what I want to do is comment a little bit on the Navy, the ocean, and right after this I'm going to show you a video that my son and I made as we were discussing the time he was taken out to sea by a rip current. So originally I almost joined the Navy. Now what I wanted to be was a fighter pilot flying off an aircraft carrier. And I hadn't seen the movie Top Gun yet, so that didn't influence me, but I did have a relative who was a commander on an aircraft carrier, and his son was a Top Gun fighter pilot. And I was on the phone with him a lot, getting all the ducks in a row so that I could be one. The problem was, on my mom's side of the family, they're all full-blood Norwegian. And there are two types of color blind tests that they give you. One is the red and green, and I passed that one no problem. I can see all colors and everything. But then they give one that has blue dots, green dots, and gray dots, and you're supposed to find the letters in all the dots. And it's just blue, gray, and green. And I looked at those things and I couldn't see anything. And therefore I failed. So my dreams were crushed. I don't know if any of you guys had that same thing, but the doctor told me that that is really common for Scandinavians. And I guess I have more of my mom in me than my dad. Because like I said, my mom, her relatives are practically off the boat from Norway. So anyway, my dreams were crushed. And then the local Navy recruiter in Silver City, he saw my test scores were really high, and he was trying to get me one of the top level jobs, which was on a Navy submarine. And you know what? I was so discouraged by all that stuff, I just didn't want to do any of it. I did end up going in the Army. But I'll tell you what, with my personality, with my whole, the way I am so thankful I didn't sign up to go on a submarine. I'm not claustrophobic. I can handle tight spaces. I go in caves and everything, but I can't do it for months on end. I can't be in a tight space with a bunch of guys for that long of a time. So I'm very thankful I didn't do that. And then if I step back even further, I kind of would have a hard time even being on a ship. I know that some of the aircraft carriers, I've been told they're like small cities floating on water. But I don't know, I always have to get out. And when I was stationed in the Army, anytime we had time off, I was out in the woods or wherever I could be, get away from everything. Because I can't stand being around people for a long period of time. So, Navy's not for me. And I guess I'm glad that didn't work out. I thought the fighter pilot thing would work out because I could leave the ship, go fly over countries and stuff like that. But anyway, the other thing is that my wife and I, during the pandemic, it was actually right before the pandemic, we were really wanting to go on a cruise. We've never been on a cruise. And I don't know if any of you guys have been on a cruise vacation before, or cruise ship, and you can recommend who's good and not good. I mean, I've heard good and bad things about several of the cruise companies. But, you know, we were about to take a cruise and then the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, we saw in the news some of the passengers were stuck on board. They wouldn't let them get off the ship, and the situation got really dire. And I don't think I would handle that too well. I'm the kind of person that would just jump overboard and swim to shore. I can't stand to be trapped. So tell me what you guys think about cruise ships. Now, enough about that. If you made it this far, cool. The rest of this video is just going to be my son and I discussing the time that he was taken out into the ocean by a rip current. And I was with him, and I had the girls, and there was nothing I can do about it. So anyway, that's the end of this video, and I will catch you guys later. Hey everybody, it's Sean Bewley the Kid. Was that necessary? I'm here with my son Payson, and we're just going to talk about life. Really? I think you need to put the guitar away. He's apparently doing dramatic effect, so anyway. We need to talk about the riptide. Remember the rip current?
Yeah.
That was crazy. That was crazy. All right, so how old were you?
It was, let's see.
2012, right? Something like that?
It was 2012. It was right before that came up in science.
Really?
Yeah.
You actually experienced one before you?
Yeah.
Okay. So
It was funny.
It was 2012. We were at
Huntington Beach.
Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
And there wasn't that many people on the beach that day. And I had you and Sabrina and Sedona, and we were all kind of wading out into the water. And man, do you remember what happened? Like,
I don't remember anything different with the water, but you noticed something and started yelling for us to get back. And
yeah, because what happened is this rip current came in, and I've got 3 kids to deal with, and I held on to Sabrina because I knew that I needed to get her to shore, and I also had
yeah, but you barely missed me, so you had to go get.
Well, it wasn't just that, but I had my hands full. I had 2 girls.
You made an attempt to reach for me, but I was already leaving.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, we're at Huntington Beach, and we all got taken by a rip current, and that was the hardest thing ever for me to try to get to shore, because this water all went on shore, and as it was leaving, it was up to my waist, and it was rushing back out to the ocean, and I was trying to drag Sabrina and your sister, and it was all I could do, and you were just getting swept out to sea. Yeah. That was really terrible. I just saw you like go off in the distance. And you were how old?
I was 12.
12 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't move my arms forward. They were just kind of pinned like that.
Because of the riptide?
Yeah, and until it actually dropped off the kind of where the edge is.
Where the seafloor drops?
Yeah, which was past that little, was that marina or whatever? Marina?
Like a pier?
Yeah, that pier.
The pier?
It was that one to...
We don't know ocean
that
talk
left
yet. But so what ended up happening is I fought the rip current and got the girls to shore. The advantage I had was I already had my feet in the sand, and it was all I could do to push forward. And Michelle was already on her feet, and she was wondering what's going on, and you were just being swept out to sea. I mean, that was so weird seeing him disappear. Just this little head just disappear into the distance. And in fact, you were so far out.
I was really far out.
That rip current took you so far away from shore that you actually thought of going to the boat.
Yeah,
there was a ship.
There's a Coast Guard ship or something.
There was a ship way out. A ship way out there, and he got swept out to where the ship was closer than the shore was. Yeah, that was really bad.
Yeah, but once the water dropped off, I was able
you were maintaining control.
Kind of.
Man, that was really terrible. And so once I got the girls to shore, to where I had your sister just take Sabrina and go.
Yeah.
I turned around and I came out for you, but you were a ways out there.
Yeah, I had to ride the long tide current that was floating on top and going along.
Yeah.
The beach. I had to ride that back in the shore because I was so tired.
Yeah, and that's and that's the moment I believed in the Baywatch TV show, because no lifeguard came out to help him. Like there's a lifeguard shack right there. We're on Huntington Beach. We're next to a lifeguard shack, and not one single lifeguard came out of the shack as he was taken out to sea. And that's why I believe in Baywatch, because on the show they ran in slow motion, so they're probably in the shack going.
Yeah, they did come out eventually, and they told people not to swim for a little bit.
Yeah, so after he was taken out to sea
and made it back,
then the lifeguard comes out. Everybody, nobody go out there. And they do this too. But anyway, yeah, I wasn't impressed. Like we literally had we're by the lifeguard shack and there was no lifeguard coming out. I mean, there was a lifeguard in there. The door was open, but there was no lifeguard. So I had to go get him out in the ocean.
Bewley, the kid.